Hello guys, good morning. This is your Sir Kevin O again, here for another tutorial or discussion about accounting information system. This time, we'll talk about payroll and fixed asset cycle. So without further ado, let's proceed. Your payroll cycle is a little bit self-explanatory. This means we are going to talk about the payment process of salaries and wages to employees. And normally, this is the happiest day of our lives, employees. Ito yung mga parents nyo kapag nakakatanggap ng salaries. The payroll cycle, of course, has the following steps. So here, let me enumerate. First, update payroll master file, update tax rates and deductions. Third, validate time and attendance data. Fourth, prepare payroll. 5, disburse payroll. And lastly, you have update general ledger. So, recording part on the last. Let's take number 1, update payroll master file. So, payroll master file po, this is a record in the HR department. Ano-ano ang mga information na nandito? You have, of course, sino-sino ang currently in service to the company, new hires, termination, change in pay rates, change in information, transfers from and to other departments, and everything that has to do with employee activity. HR department ang responsible for that. So, payroll master file update. So, next, the HR or personnel department prepares and submits personnel action forms or personnel action notice to the payroll department. So ito po yung pinaka-meat of the role of the HR department. So if there is one role of the HR department that is most important to the payroll cycle, it is the maintenance of the employee records and the personnel action forms. So employee record is the list of employees and all their information, and personnel action forms are the changes to this information. Ito po ay gagamitin ng payroll department in determining kung sino-sino ang tatanggap ng sweldo. Payroll department will always look to personnel action forms for an employee para ma-verify if that employee is really legitimate. So ano to? It reflects changes such as new hires or rehire, salary change, transfer, status position change, leave of absence, termination, and everything else. So all of this is for the purpose of computation of the salaries of such employees. Second in the process, updating tax rates and deductions. So ngayon, alam mo na kung sino-sino ang makakatanggap ng salary, ano ang rates nila. Next would be, let us look into our current legislation and update the tax rates and ano-ano ang mga deduction na nag-a-apply sa mga employees na to. Update information about tax rates and other withholdings. The payroll department makes these changes, but changes occur infrequently, of course. Kasi po ang tax rates, it would require a lot of legislative process in order to do that. So just to emphasize, changes in tax rates occur infrequently. On to the next. Next would be time validation. So just to recap, alam mo na kung sino-sino ang mga employees na dapat bayaran, na dapat tumanggap ng salaries. And then, you're also aware of any deductions they should be subjected from and tax, including taxes. Next would be to validate if these employees really work during the payment period or salary period. So that is time validation and attendance data. Pumasok ba tong mga employees mo? Kasi, of course, in most entities, it's usually no work, no pay. So, of course, we would not be paying employees na hindi naman nagtatrabaho, di ba? For that, you have the first document in validating time cards. Simply put, ang time cards po, they keep track of when the employees go to work. So time cards are sent to the payroll department for calculating the amount of employees' paycheck. Of course, kasi kung hindi ka magtrabaho, wala kang attendance, most probably, there would be no pay for you. So that's time cards. Another document in documenting time and attendance are job tickets. Job tickets document direct labor hours. So, time cards, that's for paychecks. Job tickets naman, this is for direct labor hours. Employees could be working for production area or clerical area or non-production area. So to separate job tickets from time cards, both of them are essentially time capturing documents. But job tickets are directed towards production area. So for example, if you are doing costing on inventory, in order to determine direct labor, kailangan ma-separate po natin ang trabaho ng isang employee in the production area and then their work done outside of the production area. So job tickets will be used to update work in process accounts. After job tickets have been collected, cost accounting po will create a labor distribution summary that would be forwarded to the general ledger function, that is to finalize na nga what is direct labor and any indirect labor or overhead. So that's time and attendance data. Next, it would be the main event of the payroll cycle. It is the preparation of the payroll. So ano-ano ang mga activities ulit? Just to recap, before we prepare the payroll, ano ang kailangan? Employee information, HR, tax and deductions, time and attendance. Now, when you already have the three, you're ready to prepare the payroll. And most of the work in the payroll cycle, of course, will happen in the payroll department. The payroll department receives pay rates, withholding data from HR, and hours worked from the production department. And the payroll department clerk performs the following. First, a clerk in payroll prepares the payroll register. So the payroll register contains the most important details in the computation of your salaries payable. They are the gross pay, deductions, overtime pay, and net pay, among others, of course. Next would be update the employee payroll records. You remember your personal action forms? Actually, the payroll department already has a list of the employees. Pero that is because they have prepared payroll for the last month. So for this month, ang kailangan mo gawin, payroll department, tingnan mo ang list of employees mo and then update that by looking at the personal action forms. Personal action forms, ano ulit? New hires, terminations, salary increase, and other changes in employee status. So, your list of employees, kung may tinanggal, you have to remove it from your list. Kung may bago, you have to add them. Kung may change in rates, of course, you will have to adjust. Next would be, after updating the record, after computing your net pay of the employees, preparing the payroll register, you would go to the third, prepare employee paychecks. So, paychecks na. And then, these paychecks are sent to Paymaster. Well, talking about the third and fourth step, usually these two are bank's responsibility na these days. Kasi uso na ngayon yung ATM transfer lang. Yung fund transfer lang. But we'll talk about that in a while. Next would be time cards, personal action forms, and copy of the payroll register are filed in the payroll department. So, itatago mo lang to as proof or for the purpose of maintaining a good audit trail. Next would be the payroll register. A copy of that will be sent to accounts payable, who then prepares cash disbursement voucher. So after the preparation of the cash disbursement voucher, an AP clerk updates the voucher register and submits the voucher packet to cash disbursement. So ano ngayon? Accounts payable, you will receive the payroll register, you will make the disbursement voucher, and then you will record that disbursement voucher into a voucher register, and you will forward the voucher packet to the cash disbursement department. So, voucher packet again, that is the disbursement voucher and the payroll register. Dalawang document naka-staple. And then, a copy of the disbursement voucher is sent to the general ledger function. This is for independent verification later by the general ledger department. So, after that is done, cash disbursement will prepare a single check for the entire amount of the payroll and deposit it in the payroll impressed fund. So, ano yun? Each employee's pay will be totaled and that total will be included in a single check to be deposited in the payroll account of the company. payroll impressed account. So let's talk about payroll impressed account. Itong payroll impressed account, it could be a separate bank account na ang purpose lang is to pay employees' salaries. So the entity may set this up mainly for that single purpose. So ano po? Determine magkano ang total liability natin to our employees and then i-transfer mo ang amount na yon into the payroll impressed account. And then, the salaries of the employees will be taken from that impressed account only. So that's that. On to the next. So after matransfer yung fund, the accounts payable clerk will keep a copy of the check along with the disbursement voucher and payroll register for the AP department where they will be filed. So the 3 documents will be kept by the accounts payable department para to maintain a good audit trail. Next. Yun. Now, the happiest day of the employee's life, the disbursement of the payroll. So the actual disbursement of paychecks to employees are paid either by check or by direct deposit of the net pay into their personal bank accounts. Do you remember earlier, we deposited the total amount of payroll to a payroll impressed account? Yang impressed account na yan, ang gagamitin po by the bank to transfer individual employees' paychecks. So, naka-ATM na lang po ngayon. Way back when direct deposits were not yet a thing, the entity would prepare a single check for every employee and then these checks will be given to a paymaster, an independent distributor of those paychecks, wherein ang employees po pupunta kay paymaster, si paymaster magbibigay ng mga cheque. Well, actually this practice is still being done today pero not as much as it was practiced before. Kasi ang uso na ngayon is ATM transfer. The entity who performs the paymaster function is actually the bank who handles the payroll account na. So next, employees who are paid by direct deposit generally receive a copy of the paychecks indicating the amount deposited along with an earnings statement or payslip. The purpose of the payslip, earnings statement, is to provide the employee with a computation kung paano na-compute ang salary niya para walang reklamo. Alam niya magkano ang gross pay niya, alam niya kung ano ang deductions niya, alam niya kung ano ang tax niya, and kung may loan na deduct ba. And of course, the most important thing na tinitignan kagad ng employee, the net pay. Yon. So that ends the disbursement of payroll. Finally, the last step in the payroll cycle is updating the general ledger. So ito po ang activities in the general ledger department. The general ledger function receives labor distribution summary from cost accounting, disbursement voucher from accounts payable, and the journal voucher from cash disbursement. And the general ledger will make the following entries to update control accounts. Wages and salaries expense, debit. Work in process inventory, another debit. Manufacturing overhead, debit. So, salaries expense, ito yung time cards. Inventory, work in process, that is your direct labor. And manufacturing overhead is indirect labor. They are coming from your job tickets. Of course, that's wages payable. And kapag nabayaran na ang employees, you would have to debit wages payable and of course, credit cash. As per usual. So that ends your payroll cycle. So ngayon, as accounting information system is concerned, ano-ano ang mga parts of the payroll cycle that needs to be addressed? Ano-ano ang mga internal control na kailangan ma-put into place? We'll do them by category. First is authorization. So, you know authorization, a transaction cannot be processed if it is not authorized. In payroll cycle, personal action forms help payroll keep the employee records current, preventing payroll fraud. So to authorize payment to employees, kailangan mayroong payroll action forms. If a payroll action form is not provided, no pay should be given to a particular employee. Disbursement vouchers will authorize preparation of the payroll check. So, bawal mag-prepare si cash disbursement ng check kung walang disbursement voucher coming from accounts payable. Okay? Next. Segregation of functions. Segregation of functions po, the general concept is transaction authorization should be separate from transaction processing. Record keeping should be separate from asset custody. And in your payroll cycle, ito po ang mga functions na kailangan ma-separate. AP should be separate from cash disbursement and payroll. Timekeeping should be separate from the HR function. So yon. So that's segregation of duties. Punta naman tayo sa susunod. So supervision. Supervisors should observe timekeeping process and reconcile the time cards with actual attendance. The purpose why supervisors are there is to ensure that the employees are actually going to work on time, leaving work on time, and generally doing their job properly. So, normally time cards would be approved by supervisors to really ensure na itong mga taong to really attended work. So that's supervision. Take note that supervision is a supplementary control lang. In the absence of other controls, pwede ka magdagdag ng supervision to ensure that work is actually being done properly. So, on to the next. Accounting records. Here are the important documents in the payroll cycle. All of them were mentioned earlier na, so just go through them on your own. Or you can pause the video if you want. After accounting records, come access control. Ano-ano po ang mga assets, journals, ledgers, and source documents na kailangan ma-restrict? You have time cards, job tickets, payroll register, and payment action forms, disbursement voucher, cash, and checks. The main thing in access control is these documents should be restricted from anybody's access. And last, after access control, we go with independent verification. So, independent verification are practically accuracy reviews. Ito po, 4. Supervisors verify the accuracy of time cards. Independent paymaster will distribute checks. This is to prevent ghost employees. Accounts payable clerk verifies the accuracy of the payroll register, and the general ledger will reconcile disbursement voucher coming from AP, payroll register coming from payroll department, and labor distribution summary. So, this is to verify, general ledger, this is to verify kung tama ba ang amount ng salaries na ibabayad natin to the employees. So, in order to understand the payroll cycle better, here I have provided you with a sample flow chart of a company and their payroll cycle. This is a manufacturing company, and that is evidence na meron silang production department. So, let's start. First, everything starts with the production department submitting time cards and job tickets to cost accounting and payroll departments, respectively. Time cards will be for payroll department. Ito yung salaries and wages ng employees. Job tickets, they will go to cost accounting, of course, for direct labor and indirect labor. Let us take job tickets first. Your job tickets, again, will be used to finally create a labor distribution summary. So, ano to? Job tickets contain the direct labor hours, which will be posted into the work in process accounts. And then, of course, after work in process has been updated in the cost accounting, a labor distribution summary will be forwarded to on-page connector letter A, that is your general ledger. We'll talk about that later. So, labor distribution summary, job ticket, work in process, labor distribution summary. Punta tayo sa time cards. Your time cards will be forwarded to the payroll department. This is for attendance of the employees para sa pag-compute ng salaries. But before that, actually, the payroll department has already received personal action forms from the HR. Personal action forms, they are employee informations that contain newly hires, employees who are no longer in service, changes in pay rates, and everything else that has to do with computation of the payroll. So, payroll department will have two inputs, time cards and personal action forms. After that, they can now process to create or compute payroll or salaries payable. Then, the output would be payroll register and employee paychecks. Once ma-compute niya yung salaries payable, that would be the amount in the payroll register. And do take note that the payroll register is a listing of the net pay of each employees, which will be used in creating employees' paychecks. So, employees' paychecks, not really a necessary step kasi ngayon, ang ginagawa na lang is through ATM transfer. No? So if I were to modernize this flowchart, no longer will paychecks be prepared. But enough about that. Let's go back to the payroll register. Si payroll register, again, it is the product of your time cards and the personal action forms. So, ang mangyayari po dito is the payroll register, one copy will be filed by the payroll department together with the time cards and personal action form. They will go into this file. So, PAF, time card, payroll register. But then again, payroll will forward a copy of the payroll register to on-page connector C. And the employee's paycheck will be on-page connector B. Connector C will be accounts payable and connector B, cash disbursement. Let's take accounts payable first as in chronology. So, accounts payable upon receiving the payroll register, ang gagawin po nila dito is prepare the voucher. Itong process na to is prepare the voucher. Once the vouchers are prepared and approved, they will be mainly distributed or given to cash disbursement function. So, the voucher together with the evidence of the creation of the voucher, the payroll register, what do we call these two? This is your voucher packet. Itong dalawang to will be handed to cash disbursement. Cash disbursement will now use this information to prepare the payroll check. Okay? That payroll check will be recorded in the check register. And then, yung check na yan, it will be signed and sent to the bank. So, saan ulit? Recap lang tayo. So, rewind lang konti. Accounts payable, prepare the voucher. Voucher binigay kay cash disbursement. Cash disbursement gagawa ng check. The check will be recorded in the check register and forward yan dito, pababa. Voucher, payroll register, check, and a copy of the check. Of course, the check will be given to the bank and from the company's main bank account, isi-separate yung amount na yan na nasa check, isi-separate into the payroll fund, into the payroll account. Do take note lang na ang cash na ginagamit to pay salaries is separated in a separate account para hindi magka-commingle with common funds. So here, one check sent to the bank. This check, the payroll register, and the voucher is returned to the accounts payable department. This is to inform the accounts payable department na, hoy, accounts payable, this particular salaries have already been disbursed. So, kailangan mo natanggalin yan. Dito si accounts payable gumawa ng voucher, di ba? That is to acknowledge na meron tayong babayaran na salaries. And once the salaries have already been paid, kailangan ma-inform si accounts payable so that the salaries payable record will be reduced. So that's that. So, of course, the accounts payable department will have to file that as a proof na nabayaran na nga ang salaries for that particular period. So there. Where did it all start? Payroll register, ginawa ni payroll department. Binigay kay accounts payable. Accounts payable, gumawa ng voucher. Together with the payroll register, binigay kay cash disbursement. Cash disbursement will now prepare a check and that check will be deposited to the payroll account. Accounts payable will be informed na na-deposit na and then they will acknowledge by receiving and filing these documents. So there. Now, on-page connector B. Si on-page connector B, the paycheck, the employee paycheck, they also go into cash disbursement. But actually, the paychecks will be finally going into the paymaster. Right now, the paymaster function is already a thing in the past. Ang gumaganap na paymaster ngayon is actually the bank. What companies do today is a corporation or an entity will have a bank account in a specific bank. Let's say BPI. Ang gagawin ng company na to is he will also ask all of his employees na mag-register ng bank account in BPI as well. So ang gagawin na lang is every month, kapag salary na, the company will send a payroll register to the bank and then the bank will take care of transferring the fund to a separate payroll fund and then distributing it into the individual employees according to the information that we relayed to the bank. So that's that. After the payroll has been paid, General Ledger will now do the recording process and update the General Ledger control accounts. Do take note na ito ang mga natanggap ng General Ledger. Labor distribution summary, that is for updating work in process. Nakatanggap din siya ng voucher. This is as proof na meron ng cheque that was distributed for the salaries. So, update din ng salaries and wages. And of course, the labor distribution summary and the voucher will be filed by the General Ledger. And that ends your payroll cycle. Quick summary. Una, you have your time cards here. Bibigay mo yan kay payroll. Payroll, time card, together with the PAF, gagawa ng payroll register. Payroll register, ibibigay kay accounts payable. Accounts payable, gagawa ng voucher. And then, voucher, ifo-forward kay cash disbursement. Cash disbursement will make a check. I-deposit niya. And the bank will transfer the fund to a separate payroll account. Then, employee paychecks will be handed to the paymaster. The paymaster will distribute the cash to the individual accounts of the employee, in which case the paymaster in modern time is the bank. General Ledger will do updating of your work in progress and salaries and wages. Of course, everything else filed. That's that. So that's your payroll cycle, and now we proceed to another sub-cycle that requires a little attention as well. That is fixed asset cycle. So the three main activities here that we must pay attention to are acquisitions, maintenance, and disposal. So sa asset acquisition po, in this part, kailangan lang tandaan mo ang mga rules na to. First, requisition by a department in need. Ang magre-request lang po, every acquisition should come from a department in need. For example, in the production department, they would need new machinery. Kailangan merong request from that department na kailangan to. Once a request is processed by a department, authorization by the department's head or higher management will have to be secured. So that department's head or the management na one level higher should authorize the transaction. Of course, importante po ang authorization so that we will not be buying any unnecessary items. Authorization is very important to ensure na only valid requests are processed. So, this is to avoid unnecessary or impractical purchases. Next is, once naaprubahan yung request, kung ano ang process in the expenditure cycle, that is also the process we will follow in acquiring all our PPE items. Next, fixed asset department is responsible to keep a record of all fixed assets. So, fixed asset department need not be a separate department, guys. Do take note that this responsibility can be given to a clerk in the accounting department. So, just like your AP clerk, accounts payable clerk, accounts receivable clerk, pwede din merong naka-assign sa fixed asset lang. So there, that's asset acquisitions. Asset maintenance, there is very little to discuss here. That is on depreciation lang kasi. Just make sure that the depreciation method is according to what the accounting policy of the company is. And then of course, depreciation schedule will have to be prepared periodically depending on the need of the company. Pero of course, annual reporting is always required. On to asset disposal naman, hindi pwedeng basta-basta na lang itatapon yung PPE items without letting the record keeping department know. That is fixed asset. So, first of all, the department in custody will have to initiate a request for disposal which will be forwarded to the fixed asset accounting function. And they will be the ones to authorize kung pwede na ba itapon yan. For example, if you are claiming na nasira ang computer, kailangan nang itapon, the fixed asset accounting function or the management or any person at all na sasabihin mo niyan will have to see proof na really it is for disposal kasi sira na. So that's it guys for your payroll cycle and fixed asset cycle. Thanks for watching. This is your Sir Kevin O again, and I will see you again in our next accounting tutorial. Bye!